All right, Pete, to start with, we're going to be talking about Everton. Now, Manchester United have increased their offer for Jared Branthwaite. Have you got an update on that, please, for us? And what's the club's stance on the centre-back's future?
Yeah, obviously, Everton's stance hasn't changed throughout this summer transfer window. Manchester United had their first bid, derisory one rejected, which was 35 million. They came back with a second offer of 45 plus 5. That's been rejected as well. Everton are sticking to the guns here, and they're well within their rights to do so. They value Jared Branthwaite at 70 million. And they are confident that he won't leave unless that valuation is met. I'm sure this saga isn't going to end anytime soon. Manchester United are preparing a third bid for Jared Branthwaite. He is a top target for Erik ten Hag and the new Ineos recruitment team. They see Branthwaite as the long-term answer to Manchester United's centre-back problems. Obviously, he had a great season for Everton last year, breaking into the England squad, and was unlucky not to make the final squad for Gareth Southgate for the Euros. But yeah, Everton, he's on a long-term contract. They feel now they're in a better financial position now with the potential takeover that they can resist big offers for Jared Branthwaite as well. So, yeah, I don't see this one moving any closer. I think the two clubs are remaining in talks, but the two clubs are miles apart in valuations, and Everton will stick to that valuation of £70 million, even with Manchester United continuing to make these overtures for Branthwaite. And I'm sure it's a bit unsettling for the player with these bids coming in and being rejected, but my understanding is that he is content at Everton. Obviously, he would be interested in a move to Manchester United, but he's not going to agitate for it or hand in a transfer request or anything like that. So it's all up to Manchester United. The ball's back in their court. Can they get any closer to that valuation? And if they don't, I think Jared Branthwaite starts the season at Everton.
And given that then, Pete, we know there's been some interest as well from Manchester City. Is there a chance they could potentially come in and push Everton for a move? Is there a chance they could come in and try and swoop in and beat United to his signing?
There's every possibility that anybody who meets that £70 million valuation could swoop in for Jared Branthwaite. City, again, do they really need centre-back options? I don't think so myself. I think they're quite well stocked in that area, so I don't think it's a priority for City unless they see him as a long-term answer to maybe come in and join Pep Guardiola's side. I don't think Manchester City probably ideally want to pay £70 million for Jared Branthwaite either. They'll be looking at other areas of the team to strengthen. So, as I said, Everton are really adamant that they don't want to see Branthwaite go. They feel their finances are in a better order now. The PSR deadline has passed. They managed to navigate that with a few outs and a couple of ins as well to make sure that the books were in the right place. And I just think right now, Branthwaite, I think at least Everton are confident that they can persuade him to stay for at least one more season, play the final season at Goodison Park, and continue his brilliant partnership with James Tarkowski, and then maybe look at it next summer transfer window if a big offer was to come in from as well. But I just think Everton optimistic that they can keep Branthwaite this summer transfer window, despite interest from United and potentially a move from Manchester City as well. I think £70 million is a big price tag, and we might not see too many big moves like that this summer, looking at the current market.
Paul, is the best solution, do you think, for Everton that they offer him a new bumper deal potentially to tie him down, to keep him sort of looking forward with that new stadium coming, as Pete's mentioned in there, sort of keeping him for as long as possible, really?
Especially now the financial situation off the pitch has changed. Yeah, absolutely. They're in a very different situation, aren't they, to what they were 6 to 8 weeks ago. They're in a position of power, obviously with bargaining power now with Branthwaite. But he's a player that obviously they could sell and make profit on and put the money back into the side, which is obviously not strong enough because the last 3 seasons they've been fighting relegation. So you weigh up the pros and cons as to whether it's worth losing a player of his quality and his potential in the future for a huge price tag now, and give the manager the money to strengthen the team, strengthen the squad, to make sure that there's no more relegation fights. Obviously, the future for Everton does look a lot more brighter than it has done with the new stadium, the financial input coming into the club, the stability, the financial stability. But it's a chicken and egg situation. What's worth more? The player and the value of the player is going to increase, or the money now to invest in the squad to ensure there's no more of a relegation battle. But the good thing for Everton is, listen, they're in a position now where they can rebuff bids. They're not getting lowballed for players. They're getting the true valuation of players that they want to. If they want to sell him, they're going to get a proper valuation instead of having to take lower offers to balance the books.
Talking of contracts, Pete, we know that Dominic CalvertLewin's deal is up next summer. Have you got an update on that, please? What is the likelihood he stays or potentially leaves the club this summer? What's the chances that he potentially, say, Newcastle could come back in for an offer for him?
Yeah, obviously Calvert-Lewin's in a strong position here himself, coming into the final year of his contract at the club. Everton are desperate to tie him down to a new deal. Those talks haven't really progressed as yet. They are ongoing between Calvert-Lewin and his representatives and the club. But as I said, right now, Newcastle are openly monitoring that situation. They had a bit of a bite at him during the early part of June ahead of that PSR deadline, thinking they might be able to prize Calvert-Lewin away from Everton for a small fee and maybe a low ball offer. Again, that move seems to have stalled a bit because Newcastle couldn't make room in their squad, potentially moving on Callum Wilson, which would have allowed them to fulfill a move for Calvert-Lewin as well. I think the player himself has got a big decision to make this summer. He's had so many injury problems that's really held him back in his career. Clubs will obviously be wary of his injury record, whether they want to pay big money for Dominic CalvertLewin this summer. And I would also think the player himself, if he doesn't sign a new contract at Everton this summer, tries to run down his contract, what would happen to him if he did suffer another injury problem in the new season? He could find himself in all sorts of trouble right now as well. So I think Everton will continue talks with him and hope that they can persuade him to possibly stay and sign a new contract. But there's no doubts there will be interest in Calvert-Lewin because when he's fit and he's on form, he can be unplayable at times. We saw that in the Merseyside derby at the back end of last season. He was superb in that game, scored a goal and looked really back to his best. So there's no doubts a lot of clubs will be looking at his contract situation, will continue to keep tabs on it. And I'm sure if he hasn't left and he hasn't signed a new deal, a lot of clubs will probably look at him in January, maybe foreign clubs for a pre-contract as well. So for me, Calvert-Lewin, he's in a good position, but for Everton, they really need him to make a decision if he's going to sign a new contract or not. Otherwise, this is their last chance to really cash in on him.
And what would his value?
Sorry, Pete makes a really good point. He can't afford this to run his contract down, I don't think. Look at his injury record. Look at his lack of game time in the last 2-3 seasons. If he runs his contract down, he's really running the risk. He knows what his own body's like, and he knows that it could break down at any point. He runs the risk of a potential injury or anything. Listen, a small injury is not going to rule him out of a move. Clubs sign players with injuries, but any serious kind of injury or long-term injury, or if he misses this season, it could put any kind of type of move in jeopardy for him. I think it's a really big season for him. For me, from Everton's point of view, I'd cash in now. I mean, you look at the impact that he had last season, these little game time, these little goals. If you can get a decent fee for him now and bring somebody in as a direct replacement, I was surprised that Newcastle were linked. I really was. I think that Newcastle, not that they don't need reinforcements in that area, I think Newcastle do. I think they went into last season light with 2 strikers themselves, Isak and Wilson, that are not necessarily fit all the time. I think that's an area that they do need to strengthen. But in Calvert-Lewin, I was surprised that they were willing to pay the fee or went in for the fee that they were. And I think from Everton's point of view, if they can get a fee for him now while he's still under contract, it would seem a no-brainer for me. And because the player, like I said, he's running a risk going this season and going next season with not signing a contract and going next year on a free with the potential of injury during this season. I think it's a high-risk strategy from him.
And to sort of wrap up on this, Pete, there's been an ongoing saga with Jaden Phillips, one of the championship stars actually of last year. What's an update, please, on the winger and where is he potentially suiting a move to? What's the likelihood that he leaves Hull this summer?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a transfer saga, this one, in the last week or so. We've had few clubs making offers for Phillips. Ipswich had a deal agreed alongside the Hull defender Jacob Greaves. Then we had Everton, Crystal Palace made a bid as well for Phillips, and then Everton came in and agreed a deal with Hull as well. But then Aston Villa came out of nowhere really and have matched the fee that Ipswich are willing to pay for Phillips because they had a matching rights clause in his contract when they sold him to Hull. So they are now in the box seat to land Jaden Phillips, bring him back to Villa Park. I think Villa obviously can offer Champions League football to the players well. Again, Unai Emery, maybe they feel they made a mistake in letting him go in the first place, but they always knew what a talent he was, and he just couldn't break into that Villa team. But he's gone to Hull and really started to fulfill his potential. And now Villa do look like they're ready to bring Phillips back to the club and see a role for him in Unai Emery's starting 11 next season as well. And I think when it comes down to it, Villa probably will be able to offer a better personal terms than Ipswich as well for Phillips as well. So as it stands right now, it looks like Phillips will be heading back to Villa Park, which will come as a surprise probably to many people and be a big blow to Ipswich, who thought they had their man, they were going to get him, and also Everton, who made that move for him as well. So back to the drawing board for Everton and Ipswich as they look to bring in a new winger in this summer transfer window.
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.